Thanks to our progress, we can now go further and safely ease the lockdown. Our principle is to trust the British public to use their common sense in the full knowledge of the risks, remembering that the more we open up, the more vigilant we will need to be. Our long national hibernation is beginning to come to an end, and life is returning to our streets and to our shops. The bustle is starting to come back, and a new but cautious optimism is palpable.
My name is Gabs, and I'm a beer guy based in London, and I go to pubs a lot. Pubs are facing their worst ever crisis since March 2020, when lockdown forced closure. In this show, we will offer a unique insight on London pubs, trying to understand how much this culture is at risk. We will ask the masterminds behind the capital's beer industry how they are turning the tide for the future of this British heritage. The pub is a serious thing. We will meet the Canberra Regional Director for Greater London, the London Breweries Alliance Chairman, a well-known pub personality, and a talented South London pub manager. We asked these experts for their stories about pubs and breweries, helping us to consider what the future of the beer business might look like. I'm unfamiliar with South London. For me, it still holds its wonder, and I'm surprised every time I go. I have never been to South Wimbledon before. The southwest London area is a distant prospect for whoever lives above the River Thames. Out from the main road and surrounded by grey-looking estates, the Trafalgar with its Victorian red brick is Merton's oldest free house. Decorated with Nelson memorabilia and refurbished in June 2014, it is now mostly carpeted and furnished with farmhouse chairs and tables. The main part of the pub dates from the 1860s. The pub is the centre of its community, which feels almost lost in this part of the city. We had the perfect excuse to go on this adventure. We met Jeff in between summer lockdowns while he was chilling on the sofa, having a good pint of bitter and giving us a warm welcome. Jeff Strawbridge is Canberra's London Regional Director. The Campaign for Real Ale is an independent, voluntary consumer organisation which promotes what they designate as real ale, real cider, real perry and traditional British pubs. Jeff loves the Trafalgar. The pub has won numerous Canberra awards in these years, other than being its most loved local.
Hello Jeff, how are you?
Hello, I'm well, thank you. It's nice to see you here. Welcome to my local.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be down to South Wimbledon. It's a lovely area actually. It's always nice to find an excuse to go and visit all the areas in London and drink good beer.
Oh, cheers.
Cheers. Shall we do this? Few people said apparently central London pubs will struggle the most.
Yeah, I think for the pubs that rely on, being packed out with tourists, or even being packed out with city workers as well. The city workers are all working at home, but the tourists are being very canny about coming here so long as the virus is, moving in this mysterious way. And those pubs are just not going to be anywhere near viable. There were one or two surveys done towards the end of lockdown about what you miss about a pub. And of course, on the top of the list was you missed your cask beer. Well, I didn't miss my cask beer because I've got it in takeaways from here. 3 times a week I collected 4 pints of beer from here. Put it in my bike pannier, cycle back home with it, sorted.
I know. Many people actually, during this period that I was in touch with, from breweries, from pubs and from the industry in general, didn't really miss the beer, the liquid. Yeah. They were missing all around that
I miss
experience.
talking to the regulars, I miss talking to people behind the bar. You can talk about running fast to stand still. I mean, financially you're not selling that much volume of beer, but you're keeping the thing going and you're keeping the customers happy. As he said, when he comes in from work on a Friday, at least everyone's got their beer.
Do you think big producer or bigger producer of like your Sunbury size are experiencing any sort of struggle? You were mentioning before some unusual choice that some pubs have trying to ordering and serving bigger brands of real ale, for example.
And I think it's been easier for the small brewers. I mean, we've got about 130 small brewers in London, of whom 60 or 70 do craft beer. And of those breweries, about two-thirds to three-quarters, about 100 of the breweries have actually stayed producing small quantities of something or other, whether it's canned bottles, over the lockdown period. And of course, each of them has very small staff, and they don't own pubs. But the big brewers and the big pub companies, and the first thing they had to do, realising that the huge drop-off in volume, was furlough the staff. So, they virtually stopped their operations, and I think the government left it probably about a month or two late to confirm that pubs could reopen again from July the 4th. I mean, pubs should have had 6 to 8 weeks notice, because they needed to get the message back to the breweries, the beer they needed, the breweries needed to produce the beer. The beer's going to take 3 or 4 weeks to be in good nick from when you brew it. So I think...
why did it happen? Why there wasn't this type of communication between...
I don't think government understands supply chains, put it simply.
Fair enough.
I think there's a lot governments don't understand. But, let's face it, none of us understand the virus. I mean, we're in a world where it's all about managing uncertainty.
Whatever we have to do from now, who's in charge with it? Is it the pub associations? Is it the consumer association?
It's got to be the individual. The individual has got, I think, to form, it's a form of contract. I mean, I have my view of safety, and late behind the bar her view of safety, and we make sure that, we come to an agreement which, we can live with, where lady behind the bar feels safe, I feel safe. Yeah. I wouldn't want to be in any other situation.
Do you think, in a certain instance, if you are, for example, a camera member, compared to older drinkers that maybe aren't camera members, are camera members, for example, they should follow stricter rules? Like, do you think a camera member should have more responsibility with the industry as a consumer and generally speaking?
Yeah, I mean, I think camera members should set an example of reasonable behaviour. Camera for me has always been an organisation of givers, not an organisation of takers. But unfortunately, since the membership side tended to push benefits, then you'll get some members who are takers, not givers. Now, for me, you don't join CAMRA for benefits. You join CAMRA to campaign and see if you can persuade the pub companies to give the tenants a better deal, so that you serve some local beer in their pubs and not just Doom Bar. Just sum it up after a fashion. General rule in most pubs is always get the beer at the bar that's cheapest, because that's the one that will be moving fastest, because most people will be buying it. Now that again works in favour of Doom Bar, because they're able to sell the Doom Bar dirt cheap, because they got a big deal to buy mega gallons of it, millions of gallons of it, so that they can knock it out at a price that gets them a huge profit. But because they engineer it partly, so it's always cheaper than anything else, they keep the local beers off, and that will always be in good nick. I mean, I'm not knocking the quality of Doom Bar. Doom Bar, you get a fair deal, you know what you're getting. It's just, for me, a rather bland beer compared with the wonderful choice I might get here.
I understand that. Everything was very confusing.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. Well, I say, with the management of uncertainty.
Yeah.
The situation of uncertainty, who knows what's going to be right, what's going to be wrong. It'll take 5 years, 10 years to actually be able to say with any sort of degree of certainty what might have been a better decision when. But it's an unnatural way of life. I don't want to meet people on the screen, I want to meet people in the pub. I mean, at the end of the day, pubs are places for bringing people together. Pubs are not places for keeping people apart. But of course, we accept that there can't be places for bringing you that close together. When that close together, it's not a good idea. Hang on, I need another beer.
Oh,
what about you?
What would you like to get? You said you're going to go for the one in the middle right now.
I'm going to do the Surrey Hills now. I had the Ramble first. What about you?
Yeah, I'm following you.
Surrey Hills.
Let's do it.
No, sheer drop rather. Sheer drop. Sheer drop, sheer drop. We've been talking, we've got thirsty.
No, but this is my round.
Proved by historians as the first rock and roll club in Britain since 1956, the Crown and Anchor on Brixton Road is the Jolly Butcher's sister pub, the pub in Stoke Newington we visited in our first episode. Reopened in April 2012, the pub has enjoyed an extensive refit. Since then, it has 24 taps on, 7 hand pumps serving real ales from microbreweries, generous range of unfamiliar keg beers, and a good selection of ciders and bottled beers. The pub consists of a single long bar with large windows, the bare brick back wall and a high ceiling. We had an awesome time with Justine, who has been the GM for a long time. She makes this a must-visit pub for every beer enthusiast when south of the river.
Thank you very much to find the time to speak with me. As I said, it was for me very good to come, south of the river, and see what's going on in Brixton area.
It's a good place to be. So yeah.
How have you been so far?
Actually, great. Furlough happened. I had a lovely 3-4 weeks of doing nothing, and then just to help this place business run, so we could pay gas, electricity bills, we decided to do takeaway service. So volunteering, a couple of days a week, so the owners can actually pay some of the bills that are coming out, which is a lot of people think, oh no, they didn't have to pay anything, but they did. So I offered to do that, and so my 3 weeks, it was the only furlough time I had to properly sit down and do nothing, and the rest was volunteering. But I loved it, and it's great to see the customers.
Definitely.
So yeah, and then when we did open up again, we still had the following, because they'd been drinking their beer to take away home, and opened up and just said now they can sit in here and have a good time. So it's great.
We managed to speak with managers and owners which are based in the central London, the Zone 1, and outside there. The one outside there seems to be in a very good position compared to the one that are
we're
within.
more residential, so you've got more people that Zone 1, they're all people who work in town, tourists, they're lovely tourists, so they're screwed really.
100%.
We've cut down our choices because we did have 26 taps of beer, and now I've only got 6 or 7 at the minute.
Oh, right, okay.
And we used to have over 100 types of bottled beers, Belgium and stuff, and now I've run it down to 20, just so people, there's not a massive list, so they're not looking at...
You got cask as well, normally.
Cask, we usually have 5-6 cask on, but I'm only limited to 2 because obviously shelf life, 3-4 days, and if I had my extensive range, and especially in the summertime, you've got to gauge it, so it's only 2 on at a time. So
that's when the experience comes up.
Yeah, so you don't want to waste your beers with key cakes and cake beers. But I'm going through every week, just because there's limited amounts of my usual suppliers. They're loving it because I'm ordering more of my usual beers, Siren, Dom's not the usual, just, oh, you want that many this week? And I'm like, yes, I will, thank you. So they're very happy with that. The ones that I've stuck with, like Brixton Brewery, Mondo, great breweries, all of them. So
I'm sure if there were kegs, then had to be replaced and things like that.
All of the ones that we had to have replaced, like Oakham, they've just swapped them straight out, and Portobello as well, straight out swaps. There was no questions this is the date on it. So when we reopened, changed it all over. So everything's fresh. All the breweries are going back up to their brewing standards. Every email is freshly brewed now, fresh batch. So yeah, they're all doing a great job. They're all a bit scared at the beginning, Brixton was phoning me going, so we're not quite sure if we're going to have enough beer for everybody who wants it, so we're just do you want to place an order now? And then I upped it by the end of the week because I knew I needed more, so.
Wow.
Because they were scared they didn't have enough in stock.
And you also said, and you've been visiting all the pubs and try to understand?
Yeah, I've been to a few and
Not all the experience was good, right?
no. But yeah, the other places, like I say, one that had an automatic hand sanitizer. I was there like ages ago. Nothing come out. Then I saw somebody else do it. I'm like, are they just lying? I just got like, it just doesn't like me. There's hand sanitizer. So yeah, and other places where didn't see any hand sanitizer. Table service took 15 minutes for them to even approach our table, and I'm like, they're standing leaning against the post, and I'm like, if I ran this pub, these people would not be employed very long.
I'm honestly think that this is a key time to really show if you are a responsible operator,
Yeah.
that you're here to stay because your responsibility prove your professionality.
Yeah, and as well, I think it's the staff that you do employ. If you get a good team and they are happy, and they don't like, it's not like, so, and as well, you take the piss out of them a bit.
Yeah.
Without kind of getting into legalities of anything rude or nasty. Sometimes there is punching, but that's only to my assistant manager. So, but yeah, so if you have a good team and they're happy to work, and if you set up the straight guidelines when you first come in, you do the COVID risk assessments. You go, right, do you all know how to wash your hands? Sign this piece of paper. It's all properly done. Everything's So and then you have a great team.
Some pub associations, CAMRA perhaps, or the British Beer Pub Association. Is there any of them that you think they should raise the voice and support pubs in a different way than what they did so far?
There's not much they can do to really help. I just think it should be more the government and stuff like that offer more help
in the way that you just said.
Back to our beloved East London. For a brief time between lockdowns, customers were allowed to enjoy socially distant pints outdoors. Well, not so distant in some cases. Regular tolerated walks, pub takeaway drinks. It felt for a second we were not in the deep end yet. In a well-known pub in the lower end of Broadway Market, we met Heloise, famous pub manager, now hospitality consultant for new pub owners and landlords, advising on how to create effective business models and to integrate this culture with the community.
Someone said, if you were in Hackney, if you were in London Fields, Broadway Market area, you didn't feel the lockdown.
Absolutely.
What that means?
Absolutely. I think this whole area had a completely different view on what was going on with the lockdown. Hackney itself just centralised on doing its own thing and sort of pushed the any sort of news, any government information out. Hackney's always had this quite sort of strong vibe of having their own style and their own opinions, and that very much stuck. So the lockdown rules, the regulations, any information coming through, it didn't really work. So we had filled streets, filled parks, the whole work. So you would really not have noticed any change whatsoever. So it was a bit intense for quite a while. We've got a very highly populated area in Hackney. We've got lots of people in sort of small flats. We've got very limited parks. We've got our 2 parks basically. We've got London Fields, we've got Victoria Park. So when actually we needed to have our space and go outside, it did look very much more intense because we don't have that area that people can go and have that space. Literally over lockdown, there's been something else invented, which is alcohol delivery services, which on the one hand is just hilarious, but on the second hand it's amazing because it's opened up a whole other sort of avenue and platform as to how you're going to get your alcohol, how you're going to purchase it, and also then where you're going to consume it as well.
Yeah.
So it's completely changed over lockdown, which has been really quite interesting because the sort of whole drinking culture has changed forcibly and people have adapted.
Do you think there is a danger for pubs going on in terms of people now are so comfortable to drink in their home so far instead of spending money out and also put themselves in some sort of danger?
I do. I think there's going to be a massive change. I think it's going to take quite a while for us to get back to routine and used to being back in a pub environment. Big Friday night pubs where we're sort of bashing into people and hugging and doing all that. I think it's going to happen again. I think it needs to be monitored and watched of how we can, I think, separate the fear to feeling comfortable and confident again, and having that information so that people can judge and go back into a normal environment and feel safe and comfortable.
What a possible scenario could be?
I think the scenario would be that people are going to have to drop the prices. We're going to have to sort of accommodate the fact that people are used to spending less and drinking more, and it being in a safer, more fun environment. We're going to have to try and adapt our rules and regulations to keep everyone safe, but without making it feel like you're in a hospital. So how we then have that fine line of getting that pub environment back, where people can sit and have fun and drink without being, you know, absolutely just sort of broke.
Yeah.
But do that without sort of overstepping the line and also making people feel comfortable.
Many managers said, we just had 9 days of...
4.
There we go.
Yeah, I mean, it was. If you think about that, we've been in lockdown for nearly 4 months. You know, we've been waiting for this moment. We've been waiting for all these government guidelines to sort of say, you know, give us a little bit of advice. Let's just get this so that we have a smooth transition. The idea that literally we then have an announcement, and then it is 4, 5, 6, 9 days to then turn it around within a week and change it, get all the staff back. Who, I mean, like most have been like even in lockdown for 3, 4 months, haven't seen anybody in 14, 15 weeks. You know, you've got to factor in their transport, people coming in, opening the doors, all of this sort of information that we need to have had and instilled. In that amount of time, it was panic stations. You add alcohol, you add fear, frustration, like getting pissed, and small environments and not enough knowledge. It's just overflowed. You saw it in Soho, you saw it in other environments. And then the other side of it, with smaller places, people just aren't going to go because they're going to go, why would I be doing that? Nobody really knows what we're doing. I'm just going to stay at home with my can. Going from 0 to 100 straight away without, you know, enough transition. You know, a lot of people have just gone, right, bash, we'll get it done. But others have been petrified, and it has had, like, you know, a health impact, a mental impact, because people coming and going like, I don't want to be here, and I needed some more time.
Do you think some people like that will potentially think, you know what, I'm not really ready to get back to hospitality, which is already a very tough job, very bad, hours sometimes. I need to fight for shifts. All sorts of customers, dealing with many different things, go to the cellar, and now also act like we are in a hospital.
Yeah.
Like, would you enjoy doing that if you would have the choice?
No, absolutely not. And we're watching it as well. You know, I've watched a lot of pubs, and I've done it personally as well. You know, staff members have just gone, I don't think I'm going to be able to come back. You know, I'm not comfortable with that. I'd love to, but with my situation, whether it's a home situation or, you know, all those factors that you've brought up, that they have chosen to either have a career change or sort of stop working, like as effective, sort of like there and then, and not do anything with it. The first thing that's coming straight away with having chats is that it's sad and it feels soulless and it's sterile. And those are the things, those 3 things you do not want in the pub, because we've lost what is one of our biggest cultures ever, and it will come back. But at the moment, that drive and that passion from so many people has gone.
John Keeling is one of the most respected figures of British brewing. He joined the brewing industry as a laboratory technician for Wilson's Brewery, Newton Heath, Manchester, 1974. Inspired by what he saw, he left in 1977 to study brewing and distilling at Heriot-Watt University in Edinburgh. In January 1981, Mr. Keeling joined Fuller's, the London brewery based in Chiswick, West London, as a junior brewer. He has since held various positions at Fuller's, culminating in his promotion to brewing director in April 1999. During his time as director, over £60 million has been invested in developing the brewery. In January 2017, he handed over the reins to Georgina Young, Fuller's first ever female head brewer, but he remains a global ambassador for the company. He is the chairman of the London Brewers Alliance, formed in 2010 to unite those who make local beer and love it. They represent the vibrant heritage and contemporary scene of beer brewing in the great city of London. We met John at the Tap on the Line, a traditional station pub set right on the platform at Kew Garden Station, which combines vintage charm and modern comfort. John Keeling has a mission in life: to revive the fortunes of cask beer. His love of real ale is undimmed, and is disturbed by its fall from grace.
How are you?
I'm good, very good, very good. I sort of Lockdown for me has been different because I was already retired. So I was naturally in that style of living. I mean, the big difference for me is I haven't been able to come to these pubs. Many people have had a lot worse lockdowns than me. You know, the job situation and whatever. And my heart goes out to them.
How serious is what happened with the recent lockdown and pandemic crisis? How would you rate it? Very, very, very difficult.
Hugely difficult. Hugely difficult. What the lockdown has done and what the coronavirus has done is it's accelerated all the negative influences on the hospitality sector, and it stopped all the positive influences.
How does, in your opinion, impact the culture, the British culture, the everyday life of a British person, especially if he likes beer and pubs? Destroy it almost.
Well, firstly, people have not been able to go out. I have heard of people doing Zoom tastings and Zoom drinks together, but I've been in several Zoom meetings. It's not the same as I've been face to face with somebody. It's that interaction you have with the staff as well, which makes it's a people business.
Yeah.
The best pubs are run by great managers and great staff. The worst pubs are poor managers and poor staff.
Has been done enough so far to try to protect these people that are working around this industry, in your opinion? And could have been done something different earlier?
Well, I think possibly yes, we could have done something earlier, but I prefer not to sort of always, think about what we should have done, whatever. I want to look forward, and I think what we have to do is redesign some of the things that society does as a whole, so that we can cope with something like this much more effectively. We can cope with major problems more effectively. We pay a fantastic amount of duty and VAT on everything within the hospitality industry. And I often think, who makes the most money out of brewing beer? And it's probably the government. Yeah? So is that the right way round if you want to support the industry? The government have consistently always interfered in the brewing industry.
100%. It is in the history.
You can go back 300 years. Yeah? And so for them to interfere again, it's difficult because there is always a lot of unintended consequences. Because every time they change a law or whatever, it's had unintended consequences. So people have to be very careful.
Is drinking beer at home, bigger number of cans and bottles, going to stay, or is it just a matter of time?
Yeah, there was a trend moving towards small pack in any case. Trend to drinking at home. That's changed in my lifetime as a brewer. I remember joining Fuller's in '81 when 80% of the Fuller's beer was sold through our pubs. It's probably reversed that now, but we saw a massive rise in take-on bottle and can. Yeah. I think that will not be reversed. That is a trend that was occurring before COVID. What COVID has done is it accelerated that change. To reverse that will take major change within the hospitality industry. And drinking at home often is a soulless occupation. Drinking in the pub is so much more enjoyable. And I think that's what people have to do. And so how do we make those benefits more apparent to people? You need government help to make that change happen.
I agree.
And I'm not sure that the government understand the hospitality industry enough to make the right changes.
Some people think that when you get used to buying 3 cans of beer, £5 or less, go back to a pub and spend for the same amount a pint, it's difficult.
Is drinking a pint in the pub is not just the volume of beer you're paying for, you're paying for everything else that goes along with it as well. You're paying for a nice environment, you're paying for people to be attentive to you. So everybody has got to realise that now, not just the customer, but the staff as well. is you're selling the pub, not just the beer.
And the role of journalists, of writers, and the storytellers, I think, is very important right now, because who else is going to be able to let people understand that what they are paying for is a pint of history, a pint of really well-made, exclusive product that you can't find probably in many other places around the world, like cask, for example.
I think what people need to realise, cask has a value beyond the profit you make on it. A good cask beer will always drive people into the pub, good quality beer. But also it tells you a story about Britain. And you mentioned storytellers as one of the responsibilities of writers. And yes, it's one of the main responsibilities. It's to weave these stories around what happens in the pub, make it romantic, etc., so that people begin to have an understanding of those best times that you can have in the pub. What the hospitality industry has a responsibility to do is make sure there is more of those best times.
Thank you for watching Turning the Tide, a What's in the Glass production. Don't forget to subscribe. If you have any questions, email us at whatsintheglassuk@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. See you down the pub!